dredging equipment. Okay, it's expensive to move the dredging equipment. Project 4, our new one, the cost of the project was awarded to the Weeks Dredging Company, and the cost just to move the dredging equipment here is $16 million. And this pattern to do it every 4 years is economical because they bunch up all the replenishment that they're doing in our area. So the a typical replenishment is about 600,000 cubic yards of sand. So they fill back to the template. It's not a negotiation. It's not anything. It's just the template is established. They measure to the template. It's a moment in time. It's filled back to the template when the dredging begins. There's a document that's called the reformulation study. It explains the transition to FIMP. The study calls for a similar pattern of replacement for the village for the next 30 years, which is, I think, fantastic news. Discussion ensued about who owns the oceanfront property. The question is, will New York State be responsible for the shared cost of replenishment and plover monitoring? Army Corps and New York State DEC are working on this answer, as well as our legal team at Harris Beach. Piping plovers then and now. Plovers like quiet, undeveloped land, that is, which is naturally created with an overwash. During the early 1990s, a peak of 40 breeding pairs were here. This is kind of before many houses were, and now we have 11 breeding pairs. The mayor stated our village's commitment to the plovers. We will develop plans to improve their numbers. Then we went to a bayside discussion. Erosion of the sand on our bayside has impacted all of our bayside homeowners, and it also has impacted the habitat of migrating shorebirds, which includes several endangered species. A presentation by Dr. Matt Sclafani of Cornell Cooperative Extension on horseshoe crab, the food source for the shorebirds, showed how important our village bay shore beaches are to these populations. Of these areas studied on Long Island, he showed that our beaches had the largest counts of both horseshoe crabs, shorebirds, including the endangered red knots, of all the sites counted on Long Island, which is 36 sites. Matt pointed out that the loss of habitat could have a large impact on the species, and their habitat is sand. Steve Papa, Fish and Wildlife, spoke about a new program from Cupsog to Pike's Beach, which protects the red knot. The Southampton trustees own the bay bottom up to the mean high water line, so pumping sand here is possible as it is public property. A walk by the participants of our meeting to the area showed how much erosion had occurred. Several ideas were discussed on how to address this issue with Army Corps. They dredge 100 to 200,000 cubic yards of sand from the intercoastal every 6 months in our neighborhood. They have also instituted a new program which requires the beneficial use of dredged material. We are investigating a project to fix the habitat loss and erosion in our village on the bayside. We were also working on flooding issues in front of 906 and 914. During an educational seminar this past week for village officials, I was made aware of a New York State Climate Smart community grants. These are meant for coastal resiliency, flood management, nature-based science-backed programs. They provide a 50% match of funds up to $2 million. Howard and I had our first Zoom call. The mayor had asked us to follow up on something. We're talking about the flooding issue and how we were going to address it, and he asked us to start this. So we had our first Zoom call with VHB, a local engineering company that works on these issues. We requested more information on the evaluation and design process, as well as the costs involved. One of the key elements to getting the grant is that it is nature-based, science-backed, and that the community is engaged in the process. If our residents want to help with this, I highly recommend that they join the BBPA, our local environmental organization. The BBPA's origins were in saving the village from erosion in the late 80s. It again can be the community-driven organization that gets our erosion issues handled and funded. So I think we should all write a check to the BBPA now.
Great, thank you.
Very good.
You're welcome.
So Virginia just touched on something with flooding, and besides the bayside flooding, one of the things that we are trying to address is the flooding that's on the western part of Dune Road by the constabulary, by the houses, and by Cupsog. I've been working with Suffolk County DPW Commissioner Charlie Barther. I've been working with the Deputy and Commissioner John Giannotti of Suffolk County Parks in terms of helping us with the solution, and a part of the problem is coming from Cupsog. They will work with us to mitigate it. I also reached out to the engineers, Lero, who did the original design for them, to try to get some documentation and try to find out the heights and the elevations and why we're getting this more recent excessive flooding and how we can then possibly deal with mitigating the water. And both Howard and Regina are trying to also work with an independent consultant, depending upon what the county says in terms of solutions for the village as far as that goes. Just reminding people again that this is the time of the year where we would like people on the ocean side of the village to put out snow fencing. It really does catch the sand. It really helps build up the dunes. It's a very minuscule cost that usually lasts for about 4 years, and we would appreciate anybody who doesn't have snow fencing to put it out. If you need information, you need a contractor, please call the village office. Robin's already helped some of the residents with this, and will help provide you any information you need to get this done going forward.
I thought that the DEC said that we should lay it down this year and wait until next year. That was the last thing that they said.
Well, the
Army Corps.
I'm sorry, the Army Corps.
They said that there's a possibility when they blow it, to blow the sand, that it might knock down some of the snow fencing, but they did say we shouldn't do it. We're not doing it as a village. I'm just suggesting people do it voluntarily. If you have it up and it's in good shape, if you don't have it up, like everybody I know who's done it keeps talking about, it's like magic and how much it helps the dunes. And like I said, it's a minuscule cost. So if you spend $500 and you have to spend $50 to repair it, I think it'll still be the beneficial value will outweigh not doing it.
Well, definitely because of what the year has passed before we've done it. Almost all of them are ready for another one.
Right. So there's definitely a beneficial benefit to it.
Yeah,
I think Gina knows where should they install it further up so that it's not affected by the work they're doing?
There was some discussion about this, and we're actually doing a test. I talked about it.
No, I'm not on camera.
You're not?
So I installed one on the ocean front. My experience here is if you get it too close down to where the water comes up, they get lost and they get tangled up in the water. So what I like to do is put it up a bit higher on the dune so that it starts building this dune out wider. And
So are you saying dune on dune?
do it, yeah, someplace between the front of the dune, the front where the water is coming up, and the top of the dune. There's a spot. I mean, it's I can't be exact, and this is about 20 feet. You can start to see because my concern is like you put this fence up, and as strong as it is, you get a big storm, it can turn it into a bunch of wire.
That's going to turn.
It does happen. It does happen, and you have to,
well, yeah, but
Okay, all right, I understand.
the specification that we got from Army Corps is the one that we are recommending, which is putting down the poles. They're 8-foot poles, so they go down 4 feet. It's heavier gauge wire. It's a better slat. I recommend that people use that specification because it will hold up. Flimsy your stuff, and it's not that much more expensive.
So what's the
I have to
code?
unmute them
What is it?
right there.
So you know what the order.
You know what? Robin has the specifics, and I
Specs?
has the specs, and I have 2 different contractors that I've contacted. One is Victorian Fence, which is a large company that has 12 work crews if we decide to eventually do this as a village. But I also have local contractors, Roque Landscaping just put in mine. It was pretty quick. They did a great job.
We won't get anything that's 100% this year.
But
No way.
again, right, I think that if anybody has interest in doing this, and we hope you do, please
I've been doing
contact,
it every year.
please contact the village. Robin has some information. Regina will be more than happy to provide you any additional information to help you get it done as easily and as painlessly as possible.
Should we put the specs on our website? Would that be helpful? Or should we have
that would be-
Robin email the specs to everyone? Which would you prefer?
We could, if you like, we could put the specs on the website.
Can we put the specs on the website?
This is all set up kind of turnkey because I asked these 2 contractors. They have the specifications. I went out and laid it out with them. It's a zigzag and a certain pattern that
Is it a red fence or is it a
We'll just put the specs up.
Okay, we can
put
the
the
specs up.
I don't think it's,
that's fine.
I've also spoken to somebody named Jerry D. Amarino, who is a civil engineer, to talk about what's going on down by Cub Squad and to see what else we can do to help the cause there.
Well, I think we just need to bring resources to this so that we understand the engineering and costs of this thing so that we can make a good
Right, we
decision.
need a civil engineer to do that.
Erwin,
Yes.
Kevin McGuinn has a statement regarding the, do you want it or you want to wait?
Is it in reference to, what is it?
Replenishment.
Sure. I mean, I was gonna wait to public comment, but if it's just one question, I'll try to answer. Is it a chat?
Yeah.
what-
Regarding the
what is-
replenishment.
I'm sorry. What is?
Regarding the replenishment, I understand you to say that it's being done under FIM and not the stipulation. But there really is no difference in terms of the quantity of sand and where it would be located. Thanks.
This is all done to the
He's not
exact.
asking a question.
She's making a statement.
Oh, he's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically the same template as Regina said, is the sand we've always got and we're still getting. And the RAF agreement is still in place, but FIMP is kind of stepping in to handle it now.
The difference between the two is a cost share, and we're right now getting an answer on that. We don't have an answer on the cost share. So that's the difference in the transition, and that cost share wouldn't be in effect until after the stipulation agreement anyways.
This is the biggest part of the deal.
Next thing I wanted to share is that we kind of have, I don't want to say winter office hours, but we decided now that the office is in the village and it's convenient to residents, and I appreciate everybody dropping in and saying hello. Our office hours starting the week of Columbus Day are going to be from 9 to 4. We'll revisit it in the spring or the summer if somebody feels we need to be there a little bit differently, but I think since we're accessible in the village and you don't have to drive to us, you can walk to us. Hopefully it'll be convenient for everybody, and we're working on a couple of other things to make things more streamlined and easier for residents to access and communicate with us. Also, last night I sent out the Mayor's Catch 2. I hope everybody got it. And I kind of gave an update about a lot of the different things that are going on. So I'm not really going to repeat them tonight. But if anybody did not get the newsletter, please let Robin know, and we'll make sure that your email address is updated and you're on the list.
I just think I wanted to mention, I think that's a great way to communicate with the village and let them know what's going on. I thought it was excellent.
Nice. And one of the things I'm trying to do is not send out, unless there's an urgency. I'm trying not to inundate people with communications and emails and stuff. And that's why we'll more likely to try to post stuff instead of bothering you and try to send out emails, whether it's the agenda or, the newsletter or important stuff, and not continuously send you multiple emails because we know you're all busy with everything else you have going on. Next, Howard's going to kind of just discuss some financial information.
Just to give everyone an update, the audited statement for the period ended 2023 is done, and it's in the office if anyone wants to look at the financial report. And we engaged the accountants to start the audit for the period ended 2024. And our plan is to get that done by the end of this year so that we can use that information along with where we are for the first 6 months to do our budget for next year. So things are moving forward.
So will that go on the village website?
The financials will be available in the office for people to view. If anybody wants to come by, Robin will have them, they can look at it, but there's no requirement to post it.
Okay.
And speaking of financial and budget, one of the things, I happen to have the budget for the 24-25 season, and one of the things that was in the budget line was we expected about $40,000 in interest income for this fiscal year, which runs from June 1st of 24 to May 31st of 25. And since July 1st, since we've taken office, we've actually exceeded the annual amount. We've already had about $41,000 in interest as opposed to $40,000 for annually. So that's looking good. Our interest amounts will dissipate as the village spends money. But in the meantime, we already exceeded that number in a positive sense. So I'm kind of happy that we have those extra funds available and we have that extra interest that we can use for whatever we need going forward. Brian, you want to provide the constable's report?
So we're having a little bit of a rash again of neighbors not getting along And what we're asking people to do is if you're having an issue with your neighbor over something, please contact us and let us intermediate, mediate between the two of you to prevent, any escalation. That's what, we're here to help. And that's one of the things that we definitely are getting much better at. We had a few people bring up concerns with boats and the storage of boats. We've had issues with this law in the past, and people have called things to question. And with Jared here, I can pass you this. The way the law is written is, in my opinion, the code should be rewritten in order for it to be enforced. Because in order for us we shouldn't just pick an element out of this law to specifically enforce. But if you live in the ocean, it essentially says that you have to place the boat in the coastal hazard zone. So behind the house in the ocean, which is illegal, you can't do that. So based on the way this law is written, and it's got my notes on there, but if you read it, if it says, if it's on the ocean.
It's not asking you to read it.
Right now, there's but right now, I believe there's only 3 homes that have some boats that are stored. And that law says too, that the boat has to be covered. So in one house in particular, there's 2 catamarans. I don't know what you would cover it with, but it says that it can't be offensive, which is a little subjective. I think the intent in that law was for a tarp flapping in the wind, but do we need to cover a catamaran? So there's a lot of elements of that law that I think should be revisited. Maybe the board should consider re-examining that code.
Is the code different for the bay side and the ocean side as far as storing boats?
No, it's just essentially it has to be stored behind the house.
That's a
So if
coastal
you're on
erosion zone.
right, so if you're on the bay, you're okay, but if you're on the ocean, you're putting it into a zone that you're prohibited from doing.
But the oceanside house is really behind the house is
Is
Dune
the
Road.
Dune.
It's Dune Road.
So there's a lot of
It's really Dune Road because the front of the house is on the ocean, so it's kind of
Right.
there's some,
So it needs
like
to
I
be
said, there's some
clarified.
ambiguity.
I think
So-
the intention of the law, though, is to not have shrink wrapped boats here in the winter months,
Right.
that you shouldn't be storing them because it cheapens the look of the place.
Right.
So, however that law is, I think what the intention of the law is, forget about backyards, front yards, side yards. There's not enough room to store boats here. There's only a handful of properties that actually have enough room on the ocean side to store a boat.
And just in my opinion, I'm not comfortable going to someone's house and just picking out, for now, something from there. Because if I tell someone you have to comply and then they don't, we have to be prepared to then say, well, then here's a summons, but I'm not comfortable issuing a summons based on the way this law is written. And that's just my opinion. I'll leave that with you.
Okay. Any other?
No, and I'll wait for the public commentary.
No, any other reports on constable?
No, it's that time of year. Everybody's shutting down and things are starting to quiet down. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's like the first board meeting where it's dark already and we started earlier.
It is sad.
Yeah.
Wait,
Okay,
please. Walk wait before you walk in.
all right, so Regina, you want to start reading the resolutions and we'll just kind of go in order and vote?
Okay, Resolution 1, approving each of the claim vouchers submitted for audit and approval by the Board of Trustees.
Can we have a
Second.
second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll read the next one. Resolution waiving the reading of and approving the minutes of September 12th, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting.
All
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution approving the 222-23 fiscal year end statement prepared by RS and Abrams, CO LLC for the Village of West Hampton Dunes and Village of West Hampton Dunes Justice Court.
Second.
All those in favor? John, can you read the fourth one?
Sure. Resolution appointing the firm RS Abrams and Company to audit the Village of West Hampton Dunes financial statements for fiscal year 2023-2024 at a cost of $16,000 and audit.
That's actually. No, that's
right.
Sorry, I apologize. Good one, sorry.
Yes, and audit the Village of West Hampton Dunes Justice Court 2023-2024 financial statements.
Wait a second. Gary, all those in favor?
No.
Okay.
And the last resolution is in reference to what I spoke earlier about the fees. And I'll try to. Whereas the Board of Trustees is authorized and empowered pursuant to section 220-14 to determine the schedule of fees under the building code, whereas the Board of Trustees has reviewed the existing schedule of fees and believes that they are outdated and insufficient, whereas the Board of Trustees now hereby fixes the schedule of fees as follows. And the new fee would be, we would still keep the minimum of the $750 fee for any type of, minor alteration. But basically, the new fee schedule is what I discussed earlier, would be 2% of the first $1 million, 1% thereafter, with a minimum of $5 per square foot based upon
No, the greater of.
The greater of.
I'm sorry, with the greater of $5 per square foot, plus $200, whichever is greater. Well, I was reading a little differently. So you want me to, you have it written down? You want me to read it again?
No, that's it, then you make a
Okay.
motion.
Okay, so somebody makes a motion, somebody seconds it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
I,
Thank you. Okay,
Erwin, do you want to just make a comment about why you're doing that?
I thought I did before, but.
But I mean, it's the cost,
Well,
the cost incurred by,
Basically, there's a bunch of reasons. One, we have a budget of what we're expecting for fees, and we're only at about 10% of that at this point. Plus, the budget is really under what our cost of delivering these services is going to be, because it doesn't even cover the building inspector's base salary, forget about taxes and everything else. And we don't know how many new construction projects we're going to have in this fiscal year. So based upon that, also based upon the fact that, again, as I stated earlier, for a major renovation and for any new construction, we want to have somebody, an outside plans examiner, review everything and make sure that everything is compliant with our pyramid laws, our elevation laws, our
everything.
everything that's in our code. We do have some unique things to this village. There's a cost involved in that, and this should also help defray that cost.
Great.
So that's kind of why we're doing this, hoping that what we're doing will be reasonable to anybody building these brand new houses. And we will, revisit this as the year or so progresses. I mean, maybe we might require, if we get very busy, it might require our building inspector to spend more time, which will also increase our costs. But again, hopefully it'll be offset by these fees that we're basically instituting tonight going forward.
And it'll keep us out of trouble.
Again, everything that we've tried to do is to try to, save the village money, create the village money. So we kind of, I don't think we're going to be in a deficit this year. We only had 3 months to really look at the books and analyze the books. We think there's some cost savings. We hopefully the extra interest will be beneficial. That's, a function of also the stock market and the interest rates, which will probably be going down and that'll get reduced in the future. But we're trying to take a fiscally conservative approach. So money we have can be used for the betterment of the village, such as, rebuilding the walkway, which is unsafe now, from my opinion, to the on the Suffolk County Water Authority, to where people are lowering the kayaks and then putting in the kayak racks there, and any other possible improvements that might make some sense in the village, including some of the renovations at 914. One of the things that I've been able to do between working with County Executive Ed Romaine and Sarah Lansdale, who's head of economic development, they sent somebody out to meet with me immediately about possibly providing some community development block grants to help us put in some ADA compliant type services, such as an elevator or a lift, and possibly renovating the bathrooms. It might be part of an initial part of what we're doing at 914. It might be part of a more larger renovations so that we can also have additional meeting space besides the offices there. We're looking at it and we'll look at, how it affects the village financially, but also how it affects the village positively as we move forward on these different programs. I'd like to open up the meeting now to public comment. We can start with the audience, and we can go to anybody on Zoom. You can raise your hand if you have any questions or comments. Please feel free to share them.
Question, we established, or actually, the village has established.
Can you introduce yourself and your address? I'm sorry.
Charlie Lippert.
So, and your address, just so people in the
It's a
audience.
790. A.
Thank you.
So we have these fees that are implemented that you bring up. Have we looked at or seen what other villages charge? I mean,
We looked at some.
Okay.
Yes.
Was there a comparison that was comparable to what you want to charge?
Charlie, it's hard to compare us to other villages because, again, it depends upon how big of staff they have, how many houses they have, and also how many projects they have and what their budget is. So, the initial comparison I did was for West Hampton Beach. And I looked at it, and I think we're going to be a little bit higher than West Hampton Beach. But again, we're not doing 20, 30 homes. We don't have enough projects, but we still have to have staff. We still have to have benefits. We still have to have costs. So we have to figure out a way to offset these things. We're not looking to charge fees that'll be too high to make us extra money. We're looking to really cover our nut. And like I said, we have a budget that was budgeted that I inherited that said we're getting X amount of dollars in fees, and we've only hit 10% of that. And this is kind of when people would be putting in applications and trying to construct, so they kind of have the houses for the summer. So that makes me a little concerned and nervous, nor did the money amount in the budget actually cover our actual costs. So I am a little concerned. So again, I'm trying to be conservative, and I don't think that, listen, I'm not looking to spend anybody's money, but I do know what it costs me elsewhere in other villages. And when people are spending, millions of dollars on the houses, the village fee will probably be one of the smallest expenses they have in that total project.
I did have another question about regards to the replenishment of the beach. Is there going to be any cost going back to the residents, or we don't know yet at this point?
For this replenishment, there is no cost to the residents.
Yes. Okay.
There is no cost to the residents. We don't know, and Regina stated, because the state doesn't know and FIMP doesn't know if there will be in the future a cost that will be shared by the county, the town, and possibly the village. But the reality is that the village is not actually getting the sand. The sand is actually going on the state's property. So the state is actually the beneficial owner of the beach. So
We just have.
I don't know if even the village being charged is fair or not. And I will advocate for the village not paying for this. But at this point, for this current replenishment, the village is not paying.
And that's going to commence in November sometime next month?
November, December. But again, as Regina said, I mean, we have somebody who's former head of, Region 1 of the DEC who's working with us, and we're also,
We've got.
looking through our documentation and and they've been providing some information to make sure that whatever was promised in the RAF agreement or whatever is a result of what the RAF agreement said, that the village will be protected going forward. And I would like the village not to have to pay. However, I think we might have to consider, having everybody put some money in annually, so that if we have to pay, or as Joe Prokop said to me, that the reason for the original beach replenishment fund was when the original breach happened and there was a minuscule cost of less than $100,000 to fix the problem. The village at the time didn't have the money, and that cost became multiples of millions of dollars. So he said that one of the reasons this fund is in place This is what he told me, Gary. I mean, I thought the fund was in place for beach replenishment going forward. He said it was also in place in case the village needed to do something in an emergency. Again, I haven't looked at the history, but that's what Joe shared with me. So,
I think that is prudent,
Right,
having
so-
lost a house in 91, having a reserve fund here because, we were talking to Army Corps about, the Fire Island Montauk Point or the Fire Island replenishment, excuse me. And they said, wow, we moved really quick and it was a year and a half. So a lot can happen in a year and a half. So if we have to, maybe move some sand ourselves, we should have a reserve
Again,
fund there.
And
Right.
by the way, I did a quick calculation and it's not significant what we would have to assess the homeowners based on the numbers that we had gotten for.
Yeah, but we still
Work
don't
that
know
needs to be
what
done.
exactly those
If
numbers
we,
are.
if we have
don't
to,
know
but
yet.
we,
Right.
right.
But I think it's a good question, but I think right now for your answer for now is no, it's not costing the village anything. I think I wish I had the answer for you going forward, but it's just a little bit of a premature question because the powers that be don't even have the answer.
Right.
So we will advocate as hard as Gary advocated for 30 years in terms of making sure that the sand stays on the beach and making sure that the cost is nothing or de minimis to the residents. We'll do the best we can. That I promise you. Okay. Harvey,
Yeah,
you have to introduce yourself and your address because there's people on Zoom and they can't see you. So
I've been speaking to Irwin about the recrafting the fee schedule for the permits, and I'd just like to make a couple of statements so everybody knows where we're going. So we were talking about a typical house of about 6,500 feet, which would run approximately $30,000 for a permit, which at the old schedule would only be about 13. I looked into a couple other villages that I've been working in, one of them in the village of North Hills, for the same typical house would be about 9,750. And in the village of Kings Point would be about 16,400, just as a comparison. But the other issue I have with what we're doing, and I'm not opposed to raising fees, is that we have an additional fee. Our fee is only for a 1-year permit. Okay, and I don't know exactly what maybe Gary knows what the percentage is for the second year.
It's 50%.
I was told, Harvey, it's interesting. I asked this question today. We can look it up because John's not here. But John told me there's a house that's under construction. The permit's due Wednesday. He said it's only $500 to renew the permit. I thought there was a significant fee. So I think we can look at this next week and find out because if that's the case, we can resolve that issue.
On the second year.
Yeah, yes, because I thought it was a significant fee because somebody dragged on, but John told me it was only the minimus fee earlier today, before you even brought this up.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not gonna start Googling it while everybody's here, but we can look at that because it's not, again, we're not looking to charge extra fees and more fees, and if we're getting a higher fee up front, then I don't think we should have to charge 50% of $30,000 if somebody went and I didn't agree to do that now, so I can look into that fee.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, it doesn't really affect first doings because usually we get our houses done within the 12-month period. But most of the builders don't, and they'd be burdened by.
Well, I wouldn't. That would be what you would say would be an unintended consequence. And since this is starting today, and it'll take somebody a year for that to happen, I think we can resolve it. At least look into it in the next couple of months.
The other thing I'd like to make a comment on the snow fences. They also work on the bay side, and we normally do place snow fences on our disturbed lots on the bay side to catch the sand. But the one thing that I've learned, and this does help with the placement on the dunes on the ocean side, we've learned that the snow fences are only effective for 25 feet. So within 25 feet of that fence is where that sand falls. So if you want to properly land that sand, you should properly place that fence. So generally speaking, if you wanted to fall into the valley between the dunes, it belongs on top of the dune. If you want to build up the top of the dune, you want to have it more down the side. That's just a fuel for thought.
Harvey, just when you're talking about the Bayside,
Mhm,
the way snow fencing works
mhm.
is airborne sand gets disturbed and knocked down and drops
Correct,
behind the
right.
fence. So you're saying water is blowing sand to your Bayside, or are you talking about putting them in the
We
front?
place the sand, we place the, we normally don't place it at the bay. We place it away from the bay on the disturbed soil, on the property, because the sand is now trying to move because it's been disturbed during the construction.
Well, there's got to be sand in front of it is my point,
The
because
sand
we've
all-
had
the sand all
people
over-
putting it, yeah, we've had people here putting it on the water line, and the predominant wind is from out of the west,
Right.
and that's water. So it's not catching airborne sand, it's just making a mess, is what it's doing. But maybe your properties are bigger and you set it back further.
Well, he's not putting it on the water.
Once we've done it on.
No, I'm just making.
Yeah, no, I know. I've seen, you showed me.
When you put it on the water line, it fails.
Yeah, but
No, when we
maybe
put
they
it-
put.
actually, when we put it on the water line, it actually stops the erosion. But generally speaking,
Show me the vid.
again,
Show me the vid. Show the vid. Well, look at the vid. It was put down too close.
right.
It destroyed it.
Well,
That's where we
I don't know
lost.
What's happening there? We did a similar project at 858 Dune Road last year. And it actually stopped any further erosion and it actually built up the shoreline about 4 or 5 inches in height.
And how past,
We did 2 rows, one at the water line, one up.
and the one at the water line survived?
We did some repair on it over the winter. Yes.
We'll discuss
Okay.
that.
And
Yeah,
then,
okay. We can talk
for
about it.
example, behind my house, I have a big sand area. We have it. I have a 100-foot lot. We have 3
Oh.
rows of sand,
Sure.
3 rows and.
You're like being on the ocean.
Yeah.
You happen to have an exceptionally low. Okay,
Just move it north.
no, I listen, I put it, I'm on the ocean side, I put the sand front thing out. People on the bay side, if it can help them, I think they should also. I mean, but again, I don't
Well,
have that knowledge, so I appreciate when you and Regina and Gary share that.
You just have to be careful where you place it. If you put it in the right place, it works like
If that's
magic.
any-
Harvey, was that based on experience or an engineer had said this would be?
Based on experience.
Okay.
Everything.
Is there any? What?
I just want to bring an issue to the board.
You have to say who you
I'm
have.
Gary Rickman, 1998.
Okay. Again, only for the people, I know who you are.
I just want to bring to the illumination of the community that Dr. Young, Steve Young, was now your coastal management job. Has worked for the town trustees for many, many years and was their premier witness in every case against the village. So I'm very concerned about his motivation and how he'll really work for the village since he was involved as a key witness in the prosecution of a case against me and 37 other residents of the village for 16 years. He's not a guy I would trust. I'm going to be very honest with you, and I wouldn't trust his opinions because I know how he's testified in the past. I think you should be very wary of where you're going, and he would not have been my pick at all. Sorry.
Okay.
He works for the town of, the trustees as well as the town of East Hampton. He's renowned all up and down the eastern coast as a coastal geologist, and he's helped us. So right now, that's,
Let me show you some of the testimony he had during the case,
Mhm.
and we'll see if it's renowned.
Well, if he was.
That's what you think it is. I'm just.
Right, I guess it depended upon who, no different than an attorney who hires them as their advocate and what they're advocating. So maybe in that case, he was advocating for the people who hired him for something else. But, well, we can look into this, but we were
Yeah,
just
we should.
hiring him to advocate for us with, on behalf of the village.
Is that lawsuit still going on or is it settled? It's an ongoing case?
The trustees lost it, so
Oh, so it's over that case.
that's right.
Oh, so there isn't a conflict because that was,
Well,
Done and
it would
behind.
be if it's an issue regarding, for example, if it's an issue regarding Bayside property. If he's our witness here, he's witnessed against the education of Bayside ownership.
He might have to
If you
recuse
own
himself.
Indeed, you own from your home to where the water is.
But what he's initially, he was brought in here specifically to help us on the ocean side, not the bay side. So that could be something
Yeah,
we could be discussed, but he's advocating for us on the ocean side.
I
Okay,
just want to bring it to the attention
okay,
of the community as well as the board.
thank you.
Thank you.
Jared, let's take a look at that.
Any,
Yeah.
is there anybody have their hands up? Is there any comments that people wanted to share?
Robin had something.
Robin just wrote before, the intent of the law is that boats shouldn't be unsightly, not that you can't have a boat. We are a water community.
Any, anybody else that has any comments or questions? Anybody have their hand up?
I don't see anybody.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting, can we, or we have to do
Yeah.
something?
No,
before?
that's
No, that's it.
Okay.
Great,
Second.
thanks.
Everybody, thank you. Have a great Halloween. Don't forget to vote, and we will see you, November 14th.
Sounds good.
And if you want to see us, come to the village. We're here.
Hey, guys, just want to.
Thank you.
Share this. with you guys.
Yeah, it's not, yeah. Robin will